I just heard today for the first time that Obama knew about Russia a long time before the election, and he did nothing about it.
One former Obama official telling the Post, "I feel like we sort of choked."
We were worried about looking too partisan. We were worried legitimately about provoking the Russians.
This is going to be the end of the investigation of the Trump administration. There's no collusion, so why investigate Donald Trump and his campaign anymore? That is over.
The other parallel story, did Loretta Lynch provide assurances that her Justice Department would not let the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server go, quote, too far?
Now we got to look at Loretta. Now we got to look at Hillary.
Now you've got the Senate Intelligence Committee saying we want answers to questions.
Republicans planning to vote on their health care bill before the 4th of July holiday, right around the corner. But 4 conservative senators say they simply cannot support the bill in its current form.
This is not a perfect bill, but we have to deal with the art of the possible here.
It would be so great if the Democrats and Republicans could get together, wrap their arms around it, and come up with something that everybody's happy with. It's so easy.
All this as the president signs a law giving more power to leaders at the VA to tell employees not cutting it, you're fired.
Our veterans have fulfilled their duty to this nation, and now we must fulfill our duty to them.
Wait, that was funny. Why are they saying wow?
When I got here, you know, you kind of try to meet everybody, and then a couple weeks ago, I got followed on Twitter by Ed Henry. That's when I knew it was official. That's when I knew.
I don't even know if I have a follow yet.
I'm thinking about it. Let's see how you do today.
We'll see how the show goes today. We have got a huge show on tap. Thank you. Good to be here. We've got Governor Huckabee, Congressman Shay Fitz, head of the RNC, Romney McDaniel, and more. Of course, we're talking about our first summer jobs.
I've got a
morning.
pretty good picture. I'm going to get a lot of, I'm going to get teased about it, I think, because it was a long time ago.
Oh,
I'm not going to talk about my job just yet. I'm going to let you guess about it.
How long did it take you to find that picture is the question.
It took my mom over an hour. Yeah. And I know you love my mom.
I love your mom. I want your mom to get her own show on Fox News.
She's still working on it.
We want your pictures. Absolutely. Please send your pictures to friends@foxnews.com. There's the email, as you know, at the bottom of the screen. We want to see your pictures. Tell us a little story about your summer job and let us know why you chose that job.
Yeah, but we've got some big news coming out this morning. President Trump and an exclusive interview talking about this article that was out in the Washington Post about former President Obama knowing about this Russia meddling back, I think, in August before the election even happened, saying he didn't do anything about it in fear that people would think he might be interfering with the election. Here is a little bit of that sound.
Well, I just heard today for the first time that Obama knew about Russia a long time before the election, and he did nothing about it. But nobody wants to talk about that. That the CIA gave him information on Russia a long time before they even, before the election. And I hardly see it. It's an amazing thing. To me, in other words, the question is, if he had the information, why didn't he do something about it? He should have done something about it. But you don't read that.
The President's jumping on a fair point there because Democrats have spent all this time saying this was an assault on our democracy. Why is the Trump administration not doing more now? Fair question. They have to deal with that now. There are investigations of that. However, why haven't we asked until now? What did the Obama administration do in real time while it was happening? If it really was an assault on our democracy and the intelligence agencies believed it was going on, what this Washington Post story detailed was the fact that the Obama administration was completely hamstrung, paralyzed. They had a dozen different ideas to punch back at Putin, and in the end, they did virtually nothing.
Right. What does that say about leadership?
Exactly.
Even if it might come across as you're, trying to influence the election, what is the right thing to do in that moment? If you find out that Russia is in any way trying to influence the election, whether you think your party is winning or not, take the politics out of it. Do the right thing if you are commander-in-chief in that moment.
And where I get frustrated, guys, is think of how many questions could have been answered. Think how far we could have come with handling an actual agenda at this point, as opposed to the obstructionism that President Trump has said he acknowledges that he has been faced with. And when you go talk to the people, we talk about the diners all the time. You guys have both been on diners. The people don't care about Russia. The people care about taxes, jobs, health care, and all this Russia stuff could have been solved months ago.
Sure, and that's what the president was talking to Pete Hegseth. You're going to see a lot more of that interview today and tomorrow when Pete's back here on the couch. But they were talking about this Veterans Accountability Bill. People have been talking throughout the Obama administration. We're going to do more for our veterans. If people are not taking care of the veterans, you've got to be able to fire them. only until now. The president now has signed that into law yesterday to get that moving. But on your point about the Obama administration, a good one, because look, you know, the Obama side of this is that they say, look, if President Obama had punched back so hard against Putin last year, Putin might have ordered even more hacking, and it might have really messed up the election. It could have affected the results, which it appears it did not affect the results. But sitting there and virtually doing nothing, you had former Obama officials anonymously telling the Washington Post, we choked. We simply choked. The Obama administration did not punch back against Putin. So you hear all this criticism of Donald Trump, but where has been the review of what the Obama administration?
That's when you know there are some issues, when you have people from your own administration now opening up saying there were mistakes that were made. We actually could have handled this better. Marie Harf is one of them. She's a former Obama official, worked in the State Department, now is here at Fox News. And here's what she said about that time.
I do think that hindsight's 20/20. Reasonable people can disagree about whether we should have done more. I will grant people that we were worried about looking too partisan. We were worried legitimately about provoking the Russians to do even more, to try and change vote tallies.
I go back to that point of when you are running this country, when you are in power, you got to put politics aside at times. And you have to do what is right for the country. You have to be honest about what you're dealing with. And I think that is what is causing a lot of confusion here. When you look back at those 8 years, how much was covered up? How much was missed during that time?
I was on with Martha last night, and we were going through the story at the top of the show, the story. And I look back at President Obama's last news conference of 2016, and he said there that back in September at a summit meeting on the sidelines, he had told Vladimir Putin, cut it out.
Okay.
Cut it out.
Yeah, that does it.
He clearly didn't cut it out, so that's the strongest thing you do. Hey, cut it out.
But you got to give Marie Harf credit for admitting a mistake. I mean,
I tried that with Abby.
Right. Do not do that.
Didn't work, Abby.
You got to give Marie Harf credit for acknowledging a mistake.
Right.
But that said, the tone of that was, why America's passive. We're not passive. We set the world agenda. Maybe that's a little jingoistic for a Saturday morning at 6:07, but that is what America does. And I don't think we can be passive in any way, shape, or form, because passiveness in this world, specifically with regard to people like Vladimir Putin, and over there in North Korea with that guy, you know, the rotund one, that shows weakness. You can't do that.
You know, you were mentioning, though, why were there not more questions asked about the Russia meddling back then with the Obama administration? Well, the same questions are now being asked about why are we not investigating Attorney General Loretta Lynch? Well, now the Senate Judiciary Committee is taking actions into their own hands. They're saying, we've got to pay more attention to this. We're going to look more deeply. I mean, you think about that tarmac meeting with former President Bill Clinton.
What? They were talking about golf and grandchildren. That's
right.
what they said. That's what they told us.
Of course.
And then James Comey testified, remember, when everyone was expecting, well, Comey's going to come out, this big testimony a couple weeks back. It's going to be all about bashing Donald Trump. Well, he pulled back on some of his story, but on top of that, he also revealed, remember, in that dramatic Senate testimony, that Loretta Lynch had basically demanded that he not call the Hillary Clinton email investigation an investigation. Call it a matter.
Right.
There were emails that went back and forth. And now the Senate Judiciary Committee is saying, we want those documents. We want to get some answers. And so I think if you put this part of it together with what we were just talking about with what did the Obama administration do to push back against Putin, this Russia investigation has focused on the Trump administration. They're the ones that have to deal with the allegations that there was collusion. So far, no evidence that there was collusion, but they're dealing with that. But now my point is that this investigation is flipping around a little bit, and all of a sudden, on two different tracks, Loretta Lynch and President Obama, you have, what did they do last year?
But you know what? You wonder what the coverage is going to be about those questions, about the Obama years, about this Attorney General Loretta Lynch investigation. My sense is you're not going to get the same coverage that we have had. I'm sure. Well, take a look at this, for example. So we dug up a little bit of our own facts, as our wonderful producers always do. ABC News, this was last night, I believe, 20 seconds. 20 seconds. NBC News, no coverage at all. CBS, no coverage at all. None. Zero. Zip.
She's the former Attorney General.
Exactly. And to Ed's point, there is an email circulating right now that, again, based upon those numbers, there's no coverage of it. This could be a potentially explosive document with regard to Loretta Lynch, but yet nobody's talking about it. So, you know, this is something that we need to monitor. We are here to bring this information to you and then let you go decide, because Fox News, we report, you decide.
Well, Pete Hoekstra is a former Republican congressman, and he was on our air yesterday, and he said that this investigation, he said this should close all the Russia investigation stuff. Here's what he said.
This is going to be the end of the investigation of the Trump administration. At least it should be. What this report comes out and shows is, number one, that the head of our intelligence community, they believe that the Russians' actions were not materially going to impact voter decisions as they approached Election Day. Number two, they clearly state that the Russians were not able to do any voter tabulation manipulation on Election Day. And number three, as they've stated before, there's no collusion. So why investigate Donald Trump and his campaign anymore? That is over.
Well, that might be wishful thinking, though. That's taking it a bit far to say that it's over, but he is right that there's been no evidence of collusion. That's where this started. Now you see this investigation morphing into all kinds of other things, Trump-related, but also, interestingly, other things Obama-related. So I think by the end of this, both sides may be saying, wait a second, how did this start out as it was alleged collusion? Didn't find that, but maybe find something else.
And how many months have we spent on this, to your point, Todd? I think the American people are saying, have the investigation, but let's finish this investigation and focus on things that actually matter to us in our daily lives. All right, we do have some other headlines we want to bring you this morning, starting with John Podesta, who is now front and center of the Russian investigation. The former Hillary Clinton campaign manager will be interviewed by the House Intelligence Committee in the coming days about the Kremlin's alleged involvement in the election. Well, you may recall that Podesta's email account was hacked during the campaign and the contents released bit by bit through WikiLeaks, revealing numerous Democratic scandals. Also, this Nebraska Democrat is out of a job this morning after his disgusting comments about wounded GOP Congressman Steve Scalise was leaked to the public. Listen.
His whole job is like to get people, convince Republicans to kick people off health care.
Okay. We know all of this.
I hate this. I'm glad he got shot.
We've laid in our.
I'm glad he got shot.
So dude,
I'm not going to say that in public.
You don't have
well,
to
then
say
what
that
are you saying it to us
say
for?
Something. Say something.
What are you telling us for? I wish he was dead.
Oh, my goodness. So that is Phil Montag, now the former co-chair for the Democratic Technology Committee. He claims that his comments were just taken out of context. How many times are we going to hear that? They were just taken out of context. That is terrible. All right, and more good news about Congressman Steve Scalise. Speaking about him, he is now out of intensive care and in fair condition. That's some great news after being shot in the hip last week. Another shooting victim, Matt Mika, is also now in good condition. The Tyson Foods lobbyist discharged from the hospital. Scalise and Mika were among 5 people that were injured when a gunman opened fire at a GOP congressional baseball practice. That is some good news, though.
Yeah, good news. Boy, for a Democratic official.
I cannot believe that.
I'm glad it happened.
Democratic
former
official.
Yeah. All right, coming up, lawmakers promised to clean up the fiery rhetoric on Capitol Hill. But then Hillary Clinton tweets this: forget death panels. If Republicans pass this bill, they're the death party. Really?
Plus, he is the American college student who died after being held hostage by North Korea. But one college professor says Otto Warmbier got what he deserved. What? The growing outrage just ahead.
Welcome back. Well, just one day after President Obama hit Republicans on health care, Hillary Clinton had to remind Americans she has not gone away.
Yep, she tweeted, forget death panels. If Republicans pass this bill, they're the death party. And she's not the only outraged Democrat.
These cuts are blood money. People will die. Let's be very clear. Senate Republicans are paying for tax cuts for the wealthy with American lives.
That's pretty subtle. Is this type of talk really necessary? Here to react is the Hill contributor and author of Government Gone Wild, Kristen Tate. Kristen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
What do you make of that?
I mean, are we really supposed to take any of this seriously? This is exactly the kind of extreme and absurd rhetoric that I think is causing Democrats to lose elections and credibility. I mean, Democrats have made it very clear that their #1 priority right now is to obstruct Donald Trump and the Republicans' legislative agenda. They don't really seem to be doing a whole lot to work for the American people. And it's unfortunate because, you know, after the congressional shooting, there seemed to be a call for unity on both sides of the aisle. And, you know, people seem to agree that we should tone down this kind of partisan rhetoric.
Less than a few hours.
Yeah, as soon as the Senate Republicans introduced their bill, the unity went out the window. So.
You know, there is on the other side of that, though, a frustration, I think, among the American people that want to do away with Obamacare, that have really been hurt by it, and they've been promised for 8, 9 years now that when Republicans have the power, they will fix it. They will make it better. And here we are still. There doesn't seem to be an agreement. There doesn't seem to be enough votes to get something better passed.
Yeah, I mean, the infighting within the Republican Party is definitely a problem. But I think the real roadblock here is those Senate Democrats who have refused to do anything. They refuse to work with Republicans. And I think the special elections in Georgia and South Carolina are proof that this obstruction agenda is not working. It's not a message that resonates with the American people. And unless the Democrats get a real unifying message and they all get on the same page and they create some sort of positive message for their voters, I think 2018 is going to be a really, really ugly election year for them.
Let's get to some of the facts here. I thought Neil Cavuto did a great job yesterday pointing out and sort of commenting on this rhetoric. He says people with pre-existing conditions are still covered under the new bill. Children can still stay on their parents' plans. And he talked about that word mean that the president did use, but he's trying to sort of walk it back. Doubling premiums, shrinking coverage, limited insurance plan options, and falling subsidies. That is part of Obamacare. That is actually mean. And that is not what this new bill does.
Right. And, you know, I think when they use this kind of rhetoric, it causes people to just roll their eyes and not even listen. I mean, this constant pounding of the drum and saying that millions of Americans are going to die because of Republicans, it's absurd. And I think the only people that buy into that at this point are the far left and I guess some folks in the media. It's just like an echo chamber of this like apocalyptic rhetoric, and it does nobody any favors. And at the end of the day, nothing's getting done. So we need more action and we need more rhetoric on both sides of the aisle, I think, that we can work together and actually make some progress happen here.
Kristen Tate, government certainly has gone wild, at least this week. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Thanks, guys.
The White House cutting back on televised press briefings. Mainstream media not happy about it.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned, Brooke, but I think that the White House for the United States of America should have these questions answered on camera. They're just doing a disservice to the people of this country.
Well, do the American people really care? Molly Hemingway here to discuss next.
And one man is making a big statement to support the president, buying a billboard telling ABC News to get over Russia. And that man is going to join us live next.
Some quick headlines now, starting with a Fox News alert. More than 140 people likely buried under rubble after a massive landslide wipes out a mountainside in southwestern China. So far, only 2 people have been found alive in the debris. Heavy rains are to blame. And a terror plot to blow up Mecca's Grand Mosque is foiled by Saudi Arabian forces. The terrorists getting into a shootout before setting off a bomb, killing himself and injuring 11 others in a nearby home. 5 people involved in the plot also arrested. And more violent anti-government protests in Venezuela, killing at least 75 people. Demonstrators lighting trucks on fire and knocking over fences, rallying against the socialist government there. Nearly 1,000 people have been injured in recent months. Ed and Abby, over to you.
All right, thank you, Todd. Well, the White House is cutting back on televised press briefings, and many in the media are not having it.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned, Brooke, but I think that the White House for the United States of America should have these questions answered on camera. They're just doing a disservice to the people of this country, and I don't want to sound like I'm getting on my soapbox. That wouldn't be tolerated at city council meetings or at a governor's press conference. And here we have the representative of the President of the United States saying, no, you can't cover it that way. It's like we're just covering bad reality television is what it feels like now.
So is this really a disservice to the American people, or do they even care?
Well, here to weigh in, Molly Hemingway, senior editor for The Federalist and a Fox News contributor. Good morning. I wonder, Molly, what you think about all this. I should note that I've been a longtime colleague of Jim Acosta, a friend of his. I respect his work. But he was tweeting this week, you know, that comparing the White House to Pravda, you know, the Soviet Union. And in that last clip there is saying this is bad reality TV. This really seems to be veering into opinion instead of sticking to the facts.
Right. The White House does have an obligation to inform Americans about what it's doing. That does not mean that there's a constitutional requirement for daily televised briefings of this nature. And what's bad about these briefings is that they've really devolved into a sort of spectacle where you have reporters who are grandstanding, asking leading questions, and then you have White House spokespeople doing unbelievable amounts of obfuscation and denial, and we're not getting a lot of information out of that. So,
Molly, I hear you, and I want to bring in Abby here, and I want to be fair, but I was in that room for a long time as a White House correspondent, and I hear you, and I hear this from a lot of our viewers. There's leading questions, there's gotcha questions. I was in that room, and Dana Perino got a lot of gotcha questions. She didn't go whine to her mommy and say, like, oh, they're asking a lot of gotcha questions. She bucked up and pushed back. Why can't this White House do that?
Well, I mean, they can do it, and they've certainly faced a lot from the media as they have gone through this. But I just want to emphasize that it's not that you need to have these briefings be televised, and it's not that there won't be any televised briefings. And so I think when the media respond to these types of limitations, they need to keep a balance and perspective as well. I think that reporters tend to think that they're very important and that they need to be seen on television. What they actually need to do is do a good job getting information and translating that to the American public. And there are many ways that you can do that.
Yeah, you know, so I, like many other people here at Fox, have traveled around the country, actually spoken to the American people, the people that matter most. And I hear so often that they just feel like the media has not given him the benefit of the doubt. They feel like it has not been fair coverage. So I think the question here is, are they going to care that we no longer are able to see these press briefings? Because you think about the questions that are asked. If the American people could ask questions in these meetings, it wouldn't be the same questions that are asked.
This is actually, to me, what's most dangerous, because there are some transparency issues where this White House has been bad. For instance, they don't release visitor logs of people going to the White House, which is a really helpful way to find out information about who's got access to the president and the White House. But the media have so spoiled their relationship with the American public that I don't think people care when there are access issues or problems. And so what would be really in everybody's best interest is to have a little bit more balance, calm, fairness in how we're reporting on this presidency, so that American people do understand the need to have a good relationship between the press and the White House. At this point, if it's a war between the press and the White House, I think the press is on the bad side of that because people just don't care anymore.
And I suspect this war is going to continue a bit
You think?
longer. Yeah, it's been they've been fired up on both sides.
Molly Hemingway, good to have you here this morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you. He railed against big banks on the campaign trail, but now Bernie Sanders and his wife could be charged with bank fraud? You heard that right.
Wow, and a group of Democrats plotting to overthrow Nancy Pelosi as a leader of the Democratic Party. But Pelosi says she is worth all of that trouble. Is she really? We're going to debate it.
And talk about making a big statement. One Trump supporter buys a giant billboard and he tells ABC News to give up on Russia and stop the fake news. He's going to join us live. It'll be real next.
The president, check this out. Kyle Courtney bought an entire billboard slamming ABC News over their coverage of alleged Russian interference in the presidential election. It says, quote, "I grew up with you. We are through. The Russians didn't elect Donald Trump. I did."
Kyle Courtney, the man behind that billboard, joins us now. Kyle, good morning to you. I guess this means you'll never, ever get back together with ABC.
It appears so.
What happened? Why did you want to put that billboard up?
I just watched too much misinformation, and you know, I've been around a while, and I think I know the truth when I see it, and I think I know when someone is trying to pull the wool over my eyes.
Was there a tipping point? Because we've seen a lot of this coverage. What was the tipping point for you?
Donald Trump being elected by the Russians was kind of the tipping point for me.
Because you're someone who went out and voted for him, and so you're making the point that, no, it was us, the voters, that elected President Trump. It was not the Russians, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So what has the response been from people that have seen this billboard, people that you've talked to about it? What are they saying about it?
It's been phenomenal. I probably had 200 emails the first day, which was Wednesday. I kind of thought it was going to slow down on Thursday. It just picked up on Thursday, and then yesterday was off the hook. I've got an office manager and my daughter in the office, and we run a water well drilling business, and let's just say that we didn't get much business done.
Nice. Mr. Courtney, do you think the American news media has lost touch with the American people?
I really do.
Explain that.
Not all of the American news media has lost touch, but the mainstream media has. I don't know where they get their information. I don't know. It's as if they never leave New York City, but there's a lot of America out here. There are a lot of people who we don't feel like they represent us.
By the way, how much did that billboard, as we close, how much did that cost you? It's coming out of your own pocket.
I'd like to keep that to myself, if that's okay.
I do want to know, before we let you go, Kyle, as you probably heard in our last segment, the daily press briefings will no longer be televised. Obviously, the members of the media, some of them will not be televised. Members of the media are up in arms about this. What do you think? Do you think that was a good move?
A good move on my part?
Good move for them to not be televising as many of the press briefings.
I do. When you have a room full of reporters whose only agenda is to tear you apart, it's a feeding frenzy. I believe that that is a good move on their part.
All right, Kyle Courtney making a statement with the billboard and making a statement right here on Fox and Friends this morning. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, turning now to some other headlines we're following this morning, starting with some Good Samaritans forming a human chain to rescue a woman caught in floodwaters. Look at this. Her car was swept away in an Alabama Chick-fil-A parking lot, getting lodged into a drainage ditch. About a half dozen people locking arms to pull her out. Thankfully, she was not hurt, thanks to those people. And Bernie Sanders and his wife scrambling to hire some top-notch legal help. Jane Sanders facing an FBI probe for allegedly lying on a loan application to expand the campus of Burlington College 7 years ago in Vermont. Well, she's accused of claiming to have millions of dollars which didn't exist. In order to get that loan, the blunder led to her resignation and the college went bankrupt last year. An outrage after a college professor posts a rant online saying Otto Warmbier, quote, got exactly what he deserved. Catherine Detweiler, an anthropology professor at the University of Delaware, posting a long statement on Facebook and in the conservative magazine National Review. Officials at the university addressing the statement, saying that it does not reflect their values. It is not clear, though, if Detweiler will receive disciplinary action. And Neapolitan Mastiff is crowned the world's ugliest dog. No, he's not the ugliest dog. The 125-pound gentle giant named Martha was a favorite from the start, often plopping down on stage with her droopy face spread across the ground when she was supposed to be showing off. Well, her owner rescued her. She nearly went blind when the winning duo walked away with the trophy, $1,500, and a trip to New York for media appearances. Maybe we'll get an interview with Martha.
Maybe she can meet George.
I think you're beautiful.
No dogs are ugly, right, Rick? Rick, you are a huge dog lover. There is no such thing as an ugly dog.
Totally agree. I would take all of them.
Yeah.
That would be like a complete dream.
It is wet out there.
It is wet out here. You know what? If you want to know what's really going on, follow me on Twitter because I just sent out a tweet. I'm the only one outside. The rest of the crew is set up just like right inside the door. And they're all hanging out there doing all their work, taking the pictures of me out here. It's horrible. Take a look at the map, show you what's going on. This morning as you wake up, it is chilly up across the far northern plains. Get a look at that, 48 degrees in Rapid City. That cold air is going to settle in around parts of the northern plains, Great Lakes, and eventually the northeast. So some cooler air coming in. Today we have this rain to start the day. Don't be fooled or worried. It'll be out of here pretty quickly. By later morning, we're going to start to see the sun come out. A few afternoon spotty showers, but overall, we've got a pretty nice day across the mid-Atlantic and towards the northeast. Down to the southeast, some big showers across parts of Texas this morning. Those will be out of here later on in the afternoon as well. And this front kind of pulls off down to the south. The cooler air will come in. Here's where that cool air is right now. You can see temps only into the 60s across a lot of the far northern plains today. And finally, out across areas of the west, the heat is on. Temperatures in Portland, Oregon today going to be pushing 100 degrees, so the heat is on. All right, guys, send it back to you inside.
Thank you so much. I was in Las Vegas earlier this week at 116 degrees.
Woo. They have trouble landing the planes oftentimes when it gets
that hot. Yeah. Quite bumpy, too.
Still ahead, a group of Democrats plotting to overthrow Nancy Pelosi as the leader of the party, but she doesn't seem that worried.
So you want me to sing my praises? I'm a master legislator. I am a strategic, politically astute leader. I think I'm worth the trouble, quite frankly.
It was one of the most awkward press conferences I've ever seen. Is she? Well, we'll debate next.
Yeah, look forward to that. And we have got a huge show still on tap for you this morning. Mike Huckabee, Congressman Sean Duffy, and Lee Carter. They are all here live next hour. You want to stick with us.
Quick headlines. The Justice Department is backing up Texas's sanctuary city law. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announcing the DOJ will help defend the state in court against a lawsuit brought by civil rights groups and several city governments. The new law takes effect in September and lets local police ask people about their immigration during routine stops. And the Department of Homeland Security zeroing in on Islamic extremism. the Trump administration narrowing the focus of the Countering Extremism program to focus on Islamic radicalization rather than all types of extremist ideologies. Abby?
All right, thank you, Ed. So Nancy Pelosi playing defense as members within her own party say it is time for her to go. And this after a series of Democratic losses. She, however, remains defiant.
So you want me to sing my praises? Is that what you're saying? Why should I? Well, I'm a master legislator. I am a strategic, politically astute leader. Usually they go after the most effective leaders. These districts were very hard districts to win. I think I'm worth the trouble.
But is she really worth all of that trouble? Here to debate, former Director of Strategic Communications for Hillary Clinton, Adrienne Elrod, and Fox News contributor and radio talk show host Tammy Bruce. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
All right, Tammy, you heard there. She said she is flattered, but should she be concerned? I mean, there are a number of...
Yes, and obviously many of them have been speaking publicly as well. She was challenged last year in November and won. And yet the individuals, many of them who voted for her in November, have come out and said, we're changing our position. And you know what the difference is? I mean, obviously she's had a problem, and the Democrats have had a problem for the last 8 years, losing over 1,000 legislative seats, governor's mansions, et cetera. And the speaker here, at least now the minority leader, is partly responsible for the messaging. But what happened is Georgia. And the reason Georgia was different was because the Republicans ran as Ossoff. They attached him to her, and it worked. There was a big response to that. Now, Nancy Pelosi's been very good at raising money. Ossoff got about $24 million, a lot of that from her area in San Francisco in Northern California. But they're finding also clearly that money is not enough, that the message, that the direction of the party matters, and she's a part of that, or at least that position is a part of that.
Well, Adrienne, you've got the midterms coming up. Those are going to be huge elections for both Republicans and for Democrats. I'm sure it's on your mind about the fact that Democrats have to start winning some races. When you think about Nancy Pelosi, is that the leader you want leading the party?
Look, absolutely. First of all, Nancy Pelosi is a consensus builder. She's one of the most effective Democratic leaders that we've ever had in our party. But look, at the same time, to your point, it is very important that we recruit as Democrats candidates who fit the profiles of their district. I work for Rahm Emanuel at the DCCC during the 2005-2006 cycle when Democrats took back the House. And one of the things that we did very effectively is we recruited very conservative Democrats who truly fit the profiles of their districts, and that's how we eventually took back the House, and that's how we also won some of these red and purple districts out there in the country. So as we rebuild as a party, it is very important that we recruit candidates that fit the profiles of their districts so that we can actually take back the House.
Adrienne said the right word, rebuild the party. The party has been destroyed effectively, and it's more than just Nancy Pelosi. It's the overall messaging. Perez and Ellison are part of that problem.